Welcome to the Josh Hall Web Design Show. Helping you build better websites and create a web design business that gives you freedom and a lifestyle you love.
What's up, everybody? Welcome to episode 26. I've got a very special episode for you in this one, along with a very special guest. For those of you who have been in the Divi community for a while, you are probably familiar with her work and have seen her name. Melissa Love. She is a web designer based in the UK, and she is actually one of the original creators of child themes in the Divi community. And as you'll find out in this interview, she is actually the first person who ever sold a Divi-based product, which was her first child theme. And she's gone on to do remarkable things over the past few years. She owns a couple different businesses. She owns the designspace.co, which is where she has some courses and a store with Divi child themes and some other website related stuff. She also has a membership under the marketingfix.co, which you'll hear about, where she helps business owners from all sorts of industries with building websites, but on top of that, marketing and lead magnets and Facebook ads and all kinds of stuff. And she brings a lot of experts in there. But the reason I wanted to have her on today was actually, I've been wanting to get her on the podcast for a while to talk about a number of different things, but she just released a webinar that was spot on and super timely, and it's about a self-employed survival strategy, which is super crucial right now as we're right in the middle of this coronavirus crisis. And the cool thing about this is one of my most recent podcasts was about 5 things you can do as a web designer during this time, but this talk is geared towards any business in any industry. So the cool thing about what you're going to hear in this is this survival strategy, this guide, are things that you can absolutely apply to your business. But what I want to encourage you with is that you can take this information and you can make it your own, and you can also dish it out to your clients so you can really become a leader through this time and look like an expert through this. The webinar that she put on that we're going to reference a lot is available in the show notes for this episode, and we're going to link to all the resources that we cover in this episode as well. So really excited to hear how this helps you out. Melissa is just a true professional, and she, as you'll hear through this episode, she's very, very serious about helping people and being a leader through this time, being a giver, not a taker, which is a huge, huge aspect. So really excited to hear how this one helps you out. Before we dive into this episode, since I mentioned that Melissa is a great designer, wanted to mention that I do have a brand new website design course. It's focused on the design aspect of web design. Everything from learning how to develop an eye for design, how to make conversion-based design. We're going to cover everything to help you actually make beautiful designs when you're building websites. So if you struggle with the design aspect of things, check out my design course. The link will be below. I'd love to help you get a beautiful eye for design for your business and your websites moving forward. All right, guys, without further ado, enjoy my very timely and super impactful talk with Melissa Love on self-employed survival strategies. Enjoy. Melissa, welcome to the show. Thank you so much for coming on short notice too. Really appreciate you coming on.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
Yeah, I just yesterday, I was on Facebook like everyone else is, and you had a really incredible webinar that came across my feed about how self-employed businesses, it's kind of like a self-employed business survival strategy guide. And I just loved it. And I reached out to you and I wanted to get you on. And like I mentioned before we went live, I've been wanting to get you on the podcast for a little while to talk about photography websites, which maybe we can do a round 2 here soon for that. But I really loved your webinar. You laid out kind of an action plan for 4 things that I figured we could go into. Before we do, though, for those of you, for my audience who don't know you yet, why don't you just tell us who you are, where you are, and what you do?
Yeah, sure. So I'm Melissa, and my business is the Design Space, which is probably coming up to 7 years old now, which seems crazy. But we primarily sell child themes for Divi and a couple of other platforms, which are some are photography specific. And actually, my fun fact is I was the first person to ever sell a Divi product.
That is an awesome fun fact. And I wondered, because I know you were one of the originals. You, Gino, and a few others were like doing it before I was even in the Divi community. I did not know that you were the first, though. Now, was that like a child theme or a layout, or?
It was a child theme. And I had been selling templates, for want of a better word, for other platforms. So I already had my store was set up. I had a ticket system and documentation. I kind of was set up for that. And one day I thought, I package things up in child themes all the time to install on client sites. Why don't I can make this work? So I remember the day I posted about it in the group, the big Divi theme users group, and it was like dropping a bomb. People were like, what? This is great.
Oh, that's awesome.
Some people were like, that's the best thing I've ever seen. Other people were like, what? Who would buy that? That's a terrible idea. Who would pay that much money? And it was just like everybody kind of exploded, and it was a huge kind of everyone's talking about it. Oh my God.
Well, when was that?
It must be 3 or 4 years ago.
Okay. Yeah, I figured it was probably like 15, early 16, maybe something like that.
Yeah, it was. Now we've got 15 Divi themes, but that was the first one that everyone was like, "What? This woman's
Oh, that's awesome! How cool! I did not know that you were the first. That's super cool. And I mean, it's a whole industry in itself now. So how cool is that you were on the ground floor of that?
I have a really good tip for anyone who sells child themes or wants to try and explain it to people. So I often say that child themes are like IKEA, the IKEA of web design. So, I could get some wood and make a table, and you could call it a table, but it really wouldn't be very functional or look very good. Or I could hire a cabinet maker or furniture, designer to design and build me this stunning table. But I actually couldn't afford that. So kind of child themes are the IKEA of the web design world. And it gives you affordable design and saves you a ton of time. So, if you're looking for a sales pitch, there it is. You can steal mine. That's
great. Yeah. And then even just for people who don't have a design eye yet, it's a great way to, make sure your site's going to look good because it's off a proven design. I love that analogy, the IKEA of web design. That's great.
I don't use it as a strapline, but if people can't to understand what on earth it is, it's really
good. Well, we're going to have to do another episode then. I'm going to have you on a couple more times because I'd love to talk about child themes too. Yeah, that's something I'm going to get into next after my next couple courses are out. So,
well, I've got keep watching this space because I've got a fantastic new product which is going to revolutionize making and distributing child themes for everybody in the Divi space.
Okay, and you're doing that through your website at thedesignspace.co, is that right?
No, it's a whole new product. It's going to be out in the next week or so. I'll tell you.
Oh, right. Awesome. I'll look forward to I'm definitely going to keep an eye out for that. We'll make sure we link that in the show notes when it goes live. Sweet. Well, awesome, Melissa. Well, hey, let's just get right into it. You laid out, again, this amazing webinar that you did. You did it live, right? Because I think you had some questions come in. And what I'll do is, I know you have it set to be able to be embedded, and you mentioned you have it on your post as well. So I'll make sure it's in the show notes below for anyone who wants to, watch it in a little more in depth. But you laid out 4 points for self-employed people to have kind of a survival guide. Those are, and I like what you did. You did 4 R's. You did retain, which booked business with great communication. Number 2 was reorganize your personal and business cash flow. 3 was replace existing income with creative offers. And 4 was to refresh and reach and reskill. So I'd love to just dive into each one of those, because one thing that was really interesting about this is that this doesn't just apply to web designers. A few days ago, I released a post and a video on 5 things that web designers can do during this crisis. But I love that this is very open-ended to every industry, every business. And I think that these are things that we as web designers can also kind of repurpose and recommend to our clients, which is really huge. So let's talk about that. And actually, before we talk about the first one, how did this come about? Did you have, it was a very thorough presentation. Did you just kind of go for it and organize this all in a couple days, or what was the jettison of all this?
Well, because I coach a lot of people. I have a membership for creative businesses called the Marketing Fix, which is where any creative, I've got lots of web designers, lots of photographers. It's a monthly membership, and you come, and a lot of that training I kind of had because I walk people through their business blueprint, which is disaster planning. What if you get sick? What's the worst thing that could happen in your business? So I already had quite a lot of thoughts on what's the worst thing that can happen, because I do that for my own business. A business which can't easily diversify, relies entirely on one stream of income, doesn't have a disaster contingency plan in place, is a really insecure business. So I'm really passionate about encouraging people to future-proof their business. I teach them how to do a 12-month business plan, rolling a 12-month marketing plan with proper solid forecasting and figures, how to set goals. And, when those goals all fall away and in a puff of smoke, like some people are finding in the current climate, you need to know what you're going to do next. You don't want to be scrambling around thinking, I have no idea, and just letting the panic take over.
That's great. So it sounds like you were able to basically take everything you've thought about for a long time and just compile it into this, compact webinar then, right?
Yeah. Well, and I did it myself as an exercise 4 days ago. I sat down the next day after kind of things started to feel very, very real and very serious. And I started making notes. I was like, right, existing clients, let's reach out to them. Okay, I need to make sure I secure them at any cost. What are the steps I'm going to take to do that? And then I thought, right, let's look at my business cash flow. Let's look at my personal cash flow. Let's look at our outgoings. And let's look at what resources we have to pull in from different kind of aid agencies and governments. So it just evolved really from, I did the exercise for my own business.
Gotcha. Awesome. So number one, retain. What does that look like? What would you suggest businesses do? Not only us fellow web designers, but also things that we can pass on to our clients. What should they do right now as far as retaining their current business?
Okay, so the most important thing is to be completely proactive about this. And I was seeing lots of people in my coaching groups saying things like, oh, I don't really want to contact my clients about cancellations. I don't want to give them ideas. But believe me, they're already thinking about cancelling. They're surprised by you mentioning this. So in a situation where the future is very uncertain, it's important for you to be the leader. Because leaders, breed confidence. They want you to be the expert, and they're looking to you as a client for leadership, and they want to be led. And also, you have to remember, our worst case scenario as a freelancer is that all our business evaporates overnight. They might not be in a profession which is affected by current circumstances, and they might be actively looking for ways to support small business as well. So there's lots of reasons to be in control of the narrative, and also, things might get worse before they get better, because I'm always about the worst case scenario. So I would prefer to reach out now to my clients and lay out what might happen. Now, I went over in the webinar, I go over this in some detail because a lot of my audience are photographers, and they are actively having to postpone events and come up with scenarios like, if I can't shoot your wedding, if I get sick, if you get sick, we're thinking about all of these. They're laying out the likely timeline of events, and that's what I would encourage you to do, to lay out the likely timeline of events wherever you are in the world, and say, well, what's the first thing that might happen? They can't work. So you're going to tackle this in two ways. You're going to, if you've got things which are dependent on dates and launches that people are putting off, you need to be proactive about saying, hey, it's on my radar that this is happening. Do you think you're going to need a postponement? Here's what's going to happen if you did. And you're always looking to mitigate what the fallout might be. So it might be that what you don't want to do is get hit with cancellations. So you can reach out to people and say, hey, I appreciate you. Thank you. If someone comes to you and says, I think I need to shelve this project, you can say, I appreciate you now might not be the right time, but why don't we look at scaling it down and maybe investing a little bit of money over the coming months so that it's not a big lump sum payment, and that we can continue working together so that we're ready to come back. And, that is your message, that things are going to return to normal, and that, the situation isn't going to go on forever. And then people are going to need the web designers and the graphic designers and the wedding photographers of this world. And it's better if they can get stuck in during what's, a quiet period, which might be very productive for a lot of people, to come back poised, ready to kind of to resume normal service.
So the idea is, instead of doing like full cancellations on projects, try to just work out, smaller payments, or maybe postpone plans of action, things like that. Because I know we're wrapping up a big e-commerce project right now, and my client was going to do a big event this weekend. Well, obviously that ain't happening here in the States. Everything is on lockdown. Or especially here in Ohio right now. So we're essentially, we're just about done with everything. So it might be an approach we take too, because she may not make revenue for the next however little while, although it is an online shop. So she could probably launch still, do a lot of online things. But as far as like going to trade shows and those kind of things that were planned, yeah, we might work out kind of a postponed agreement, which is a great idea, instead of just saying, hey, I need to cancel this project or cancel my maintenance plan or something like that.
Yeah, exactly. So be proactive about reaching out, and it's not like we can all not think and not talk about what's going on at all times. It's kind of so at the front of people's minds that it seems kind of crazy that you wouldn't reach out. And I'm not talking about those ridiculous emails you get where like, oh, who did I have? GoDaddy told me that all about their coronavirus containment plan in the office. I was like, whatever.
Yeah. Who cares, right?
Well, thanks, guys. But it was more about it's more about how what's going on might affect your personal relationship with them.
I like that idea too. And I think you mentioned this a little bit ago with being the first to reach out, be the leader. And I know there is some fear and apprehension because it's like, well, like we have over 70 people on our maintenance plan. And it's like, well, if I reach out to everyone, like part of me is like, do you want to be that first one that initiates fear? And they're like, oh crap, do I even need my maintenance plan through this period? But I think your point is so valid in saying that, you know what, if you're the first one to say, hey, here's what we can do for you. Do you guys need help? Do we need to put notices up? Is there anything we could do on your site to help during this period? That will bode so much well for you. And I encourage every website designer who has a maintenance plan or is managing a lot of client sites to do that. Be proactive, even if I wouldn't be too worried about planting that seed of doubt. I don't know how you feel about that, but it's better to be the one who reaches out than to just not say anything. And then I feel like that's probably more of a situation where that could lead to a cancellation.
I can give you two concrete examples of this in action. So my amazing the cleaning firm who comes and cleans our house, the owner, Claire, said to me, I'm seeing a lot of cancellations, Melissa. How do you feel about us carrying on coming to your house to do the cleaning? And I said, I feel 100% great about it if you want us to be out of the house when you do that. And she said, well, if money gets tight, obviously let us know, which I thought was so kind. So when I sat down with my husband yesterday, we went through our kind of cash flow because he owns restaurants, which obviously are closed, and it's a concern to us. I said, we both said, look, we have to prioritize Claire. She's another small business, so that expense stays, and that's because she was so proactive. Instead of me just texting her and saying, "Oh, don't come in next week," I thought I must make sure Claire stays, and then the other thing, I then went to my membership, and I've got 350 members, and if lots and lots of them start cancelling, it could be disaster, really, because I've got less client inquiries coming in. And I said to them, listen guys, I'm going to do my best. I'm going to focus all my attention on creating great content to help you at this difficult time, but I'm going to make sure that every one of those £29 every month delivers 10 times that in value. And I really appreciate it from one small business to another. But also don't be afraid to reach out if you're struggling, and we'll see what we can do. And I was inundated with messages of saying, thank you, we're going to stick with you. We've decided it's an expense that's really important to keep on, so we can, in this quiet time, we can keep marketing. And it was really, really touching. So just honesty and genuine tackling the situation in a really honest manner from one human to another is the best approach.
That is so great. And what you just said, you hit the nail on the head right there, being genuine and honest and helpful during this period, because it's not like you're trying to squeeze out a quick sale by offering, a discount on products just to make more money, or kind of seize the opportunity. Because I hate to say there's an opportunity during this time, but the fact is there is in a lot of digital markets. More people are online than ever right now. So not necessarily from a selling a product or a service per se, but you can just get in front of more people and really build your brand and build trust and transparency right now, which is huge. And I think you're a prime example of utilizing this opportunity for good, not for selfish gain. I mean, yeah, you have bills to pay and you have a family, but you're also helping a lot of people, which I think is huge. I'm very inspired by that.
You have to give generously at a time like this. But there was something else I was going to say that I'll remember in a second. Yeah, so it's really important. I know what it was. Yeah, so look, we're all small businesses. We're mostly solopreneurs. I've got a small team of freelancers who help me, but essentially it's just me driving the company forward. And it's okay, because these are extraordinary times. So normally you wouldn't go, oh, please don't cancel this project because I need the money. But there's a way of saying, listen, I fully understand you needing to scale back, but I hope you understand I'm a small business and self-employed, so there isn't a lot of support for me coming from the government. How would you feel about scaling this back and breaking it down into kind of a much smaller monthly payment? It's okay to talk about this stuff right now, because this is literally all we're talking about and thinking about. So the normal rules of looking a bit desperate, do not apply. It's just be honest.
And what's amazing about this is it's so soon. Like I said, we were talking before we went live. I think here in Ohio, we're probably about a week ahead of where you guys are, it sounds like, with the amount of containment and things like that. But it's still so brand new to us. This time last week was like last Friday. We're recording this on a Friday. Last Friday was when it just started getting a little more real. And then it was like overnight, things were just shut down and everyone's in a panic. People are, mass buying stuff and just crazy stuff. From the business world, though, I feel like, most people seem to have a level head, at least people in my business networking group. And, some businesses are more affected than others, but it seems like most everyone has a level head. But the idea of being proactive and in this first point, retaining good communication, that is just, it's so key. It's so key through these times to stay calm. Your family needs you to be calm. Your business needs you to be calm. Your clients need you to be calm. Be that leader, right? It sounds like you're really about, being the one who is staying in the lead and grounded through this time.
And I also said, particularly to my photographers who were saying with all these postponements, you could say just the same with any business with projects. If people are postponing projects and they were due to pay a deposit, say, I wouldn't normally ask this, but given the circumstances and the fact that I'm self-employed, I would love it if we could, if I could take your original deposit when it was first originally due. Mm-hmm. So, people are amenable. They might be in a profession which is not at all affected, and they'll say, I'd love to do that to help you. So it's okay to just be a bit more honest than we normally would in a business negotiation. That's
a great point. And that point right there, I mean, a lot of businesses are doing just fine. It's very easy to think because as freelancers, like you said, we're in a little bit of a vulnerable position. We're not as vulnerable as your husband with restaurants because there's no choice. They're closed. Now they can do carry out and delivery. And I actually know there was a restaurant locally we supported here a couple of days ago. They're like just a small little sandwich type place. They were super busy because they were doing nonstop delivery orders and carryouts. And then I actually just had a meeting with my networking group virtually this morning, and we have a construction contractor, and they are super busy right now with a lot of the things going on here locally still. So yeah, there are businesses that are not hurting. Some industries are, but some aren't. So there's no reason not to continue that kind of work with businesses that are flourishing through this time. And you shouldn't feel bad about that either. I feel like that's something where like you can almost feel bad when we have some businesses that are struggling and some are doing well. But I would say if you're in that position where you're doing well, utilize this time to make a difference. Give more, figure out where you're being called to help out. And like you said, think about the businesses and services you utilize. And if it's a small business who you think might need that help, don't be so quick to maybe cancel a service if you're doing all right.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So retain that good client communication. I think that's key. That's awesome. So that's point number one.
Don't be shy of renegotiating financial arrangements. Those are
Great call. Yeah. Now, number 2, reorganize personal and business cash flow. I'm really curious about this one because this is a great topic. It's like, for those new into business, the term of cash flow can sound a little bit corporate or foreign, but the idea of like what's coming in, what's going out, both business and personal, this is huge. Yeah. What does that look like to you? What would you recommend people do as far as cash flow goes?
Well, at its simplest, you can sit down with your business bank account and your personal bank account and go down and look at your kind of biggest expenses and see if there's anything that you're not using. So I identified 4 or 5 subscriptions, which I don't use. So, that was fine for me. There was time for those to go. One of them I'd completely forgotten about, which is even more embarrassing. Things like I'm transitioning from Dropbox to Google Drive. I went into my Dropbox account, had a 5 license pack, which I only need 1. So that kind of took away 3/4 of that cost. It's not a ton of money every month. It's maybe $50 a month, but I needed, why wouldn't I do it? So for me, it was a good catalyst to go and clean house and get rid of anything. Sure. So that's the first one. I then went to 2 of my biggest suppliers. One of them was my hosting company and the other one is my backup company. And I asked if they had any discounts they could pass on right now. And I would in turn pass those on to my audience. And they both responded really well to that. And I got some savings there. Many of you might know about the Adobe 2-month pause if you go through the cancel process. I feel bad for sharing that one, but there's a few things floating around there. So
and for real quick, for those who don't know, so like Adobe Creative Cloud with Photoshop and Illustrator and everything. Yeah, so do you have to cancel it to get a couple months free, or what is that? How does that work?
I don't know whether this is related to what's going on at the moment, but you go through the cancel process and it says and it says there'll be an early cancellation fee, which isn't true. And then you go through about 3 more screens. You have to hold your nerve. And before they say, finally, you definitely sure, they say, how about 2 months free? And you go, thank you very much.
Okay. Yeah. Well, I really hope nobody from Creative Cloud hears this. I don't think they will, so we should be good. The show's not that popular yet, but a lot of web designers might be able to take advantage of that if they're in crunch time, particularly those who are just starting out. Now, do you know, do they have an entry, do they have a free entry, an extended free entry period, or like a longer free trial or something?
I don't know. They might well do.
Just curious. I would imagine they would. If they're going to offer that, I imagine they want to try to get people locked in. So that's great. Yeah. But didn't mean to cut you off there, though. Feel free to talk about cash flow stuff, because that's great.
So the first one is eliminate anything you're not using. The second part was renegotiate existing larger expenses, because, it's kind of chopping down a couple of bigger ones. Even a slight reduction in your biggest costs can make quite a difference. And then this is more on things are different depending on where you are in the world. But in the UK, for example, it's just been announced that anybody with a business premises is going to pay no business rates, like premises taxes, for the next year. So,
okay. Yep.
Which led me to thinking, actually, each day there's a new announcement about different packages, and I can see that's happening in the US, and we're waiting for our chancellor to come and talk to us today at 5 p.m. But so there's new things being, like, you can defer your tax payments. So I've deferred my corporation tax, my business tax payment, which is due at the end of this month. I've deferred that for 3 months. I'm not going to spend the money, but if I need it, at least I know it's sitting there in my business bank account, so we've got a buffer to draw on. So any government-related expense, they're not going to chase you right now. So you can say that for so I know in the UK, mortgage companies and banks have said you can take payment holidays from your mortgage. So it's really just connecting with your biggest personal and business expenses and seeing what they're letting you get away with. So I haven't done it yet, but we've earmarked, when we sat down and went through our bank account yesterday at home, we've earmarked things that we might stop being a direct standing order payment, like it would be our council tax, which is like our local tax we pay to our local county for rubbish collection, all that kind of stuff. They're not going to chase you either. They're too busy trying to organise community.
Sure.
All of these, any government, so big government expenses, government payments, and big company payments. On the next tier down is going to be utilities. I know a couple of people had phoned up their mobile phone company and said, this is too expensive, I'm going to leave there. That's fine, have 20% off. So big companies are they just want to hang on to you. So don't be afraid to ask for discounts or breaks in payment at this time.
That's great. And that's all personal, but business too, right? I mean, you could have that same, whether it's business or personal, that's all intermingled, particularly those of us who work from home. Business and personal is very merged together in a lot of different ways, whether it's cable or phone, internet, stuff like that.
I just literally went through both bank accounts. I looked at what I've been spending on for the last 2 months. I've told the children to stop ordering movies on Amazon. We've knocked our nasty Amazon habit right on the head. But I also did the same with some business expenses as well, things that subscriptions I just haven't been using.
Yeah. Yeah. Awesome. That's great. So big picture stuff first. Anything government related can definitely, like I said, depending on where you are, a lot of states and counties are issuing like the grace period if you're going to delay paying mortgage or things like that. That's huge. And then the second tier, the utilities, ask for those discounts, like you just said, just see what can be done. It doesn't hurt, particularly at this point, I would imagine. Like you said, companies do want to hang on to you.
Oh, and don't be afraid to ask your landlord. So we have a small apartment in a different town, and our base rate was slashed to 0.1. I know in the US it's now 0. So we passed on the full saving of that mortgage reduction straight to the tenant, and we proactively wrote to them and said, this is what we're going to do for you. So they didn't have to ask us. But, if you're a renter, definitely ask, because owners are seeing, tracker mortgages, rates falling. So
yeah.
Pass that on. And I know in the UK there's they've made it it's coming into law that it's going to be illegal to evict anyone during this emergency period.
Oh, I'd heard that too. I think I just heard that recently.
So your landlord's another one who you might just say, I'm going to have to take a 3-month break. And
It's interesting in this time, you actually see a lot of goodness of humanity come out, right? Isn't it fascinating how, times of crisis, I've seen actually probably more good things than bad things. Like aside from people stocking up on toilet paper in a ridiculous amount, or there's those stories of people out there like selling TP or hand sanitizer for, a ridiculous amount, which is just appalling. Like more often than not, there's a lot more good things that I'm seeing, which is pretty amazing. Facebook has actually been the most pleasant type of social media experience I've ever seen here recently.
I wonder if I'm sure there's some listeners in a similar position. I've just quickly thrown together using a one of the included Divi layouts to do a community website, which we're using to coordinate looking after people in isolation. So it's great to have skills you can share it.
Yeah, and certain industries are going to be more apt to do that kind of thing. It's one thing I'm telling my clients is if you have any sort of social media presence or videos or anything, blog posts or anything on your website, produce your content. If you have extra time right now, produce content. Maybe it doesn't lead to sales right away, but like I mentioned earlier, it builds that trust, it builds that continuity, and you keep in front of people's mind, which is huge. And once we come out of this thing, that's when things are really going to blow up.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
Okay, so great. Number 1, retain. That was awesome. We just covered reorganize, things personal and business for cash flow. Let's dive into number 3. I'm really excited to hear more about this one, which is to replace existing income with creative offers. So what ideas do you have for that, from Melissa? Because that sounds like a really great plan for every industry right now.
Well, when I spoke about this on the webinar the other day, it was very much aimed at photographers, but I then sat down and had a really good think about our industry. Mostly because I have had lots of inquiries from people saying, hey, I've decided to take my business online. Now is the time I'm going to launch this course. Can you help me build a course website? So obviously, there is if you have the skills, there is an opportunity in this industry. But so I'm going to talk about new offers that you could put out there. And this is one I'm going to do because I've been approached by a lot of people, but I don't want to charge very much money. So people are coming to me and saying, I've got a little bit of money. I think I have to kind of invest in this now because what if mostly the photography market doesn't recover for a long time? This could go on. This social distancing could go on for a very long time periodically. So there are some photographers quite rightly are thinking through their worst case scenario. So I'm scrambling to put together a kind of a mini theme with all ready for them to buy and just do a small subscription amount to get them up and running. And I'm doing a free webinar on it next week, and I'm just going to bundle it with a load of free training. So they feel like they're giving me something, but I'm not asking for very much, but it's relationship building and it's being as helpful as I can at this time. So if you see
I was just going to
something,
Yeah. Be creative. Think of something new. It's interesting. I mentioned my networking group earlier. We met digitally, and one of the members is a fellow photographer, and she was talking about the same thing, the uncertainty, and it's like all the shoots he had planned, they're not going to do. And she was talking about some photographers are doing like hazmat suit shoots. So they're doing like family photos and they bring hazmat suits and stuff. So that may be a little extreme, but there is, there's a lot of opportunity though. You're totally right. People are getting their stuff online more than ever.
Yeah. So you might reach out to your client base. For example, my husband's restaurants, the 3 managers phoned up yesterday and went, quickly, we need vouchers sales on the website because people can't go out for dinner. So they're buying each other vouchers as a promise that they're going to go out for dinner when they're allowed to again. So you might put together a package of services like that, which you have to market that carefully because you don't want it to be opportunistic. But what I would do is probably do a mail out to my list saying something like, well, I'm going to do it next week anyway. Offering to go back that most people are having a kind of time of now looking at their marketing and thinking, well, now's the time I can really sharpen things up. So you might like to offer some services around that, around, email funnel integration, kind of back-end marketing tools. You might be mentioning if you have got kind of customer-facing businesses, if your clients have got restaurants or stores, they might be wanting vouchers. So there's a way of phrasing that without looking predatory. But
yeah, and it can come across really slimy if you're trying to sell something right now. But again, there is an opportunity where there's more eyes on the majority of industries online right now. And to your point, like same thing for me, I had a huge influx last week of people asking about my courses, because I have a suite of growing web design courses now. So as a course creator, I'm actually busier than ever right now, which is amazing.
Yeah,
but the thing for me though, and same for you, like what I realized though, and I think where we kind of share a kinship in this is there was an opportunity there, but I didn't want to seize it in a way that is, again, just slimy or like selfish. What I decided to do was the fact that I had all these people reaching out. I was very well aware that a lot of these people probably either can't work right now, or their work has changed dramatically, or they're in an industry where they realize it's vulnerable and they want to do something online. So what I decided to do was to cut my courses off by 25%. So I'm offering a 25% offer. But I I didn't want to just stop there, because I felt like if I just said my courses are 25% off, then it's going to seem like I'm just trying to, get as many sales as possible during this crisis. But what I decided to do is right now through the month of March 2020 is I'm offering that discount for people who want to invest in their own, their courses, my courses right now. But I'm giving an additional 25% to a local nonprofit who is helping families in need here in Columbus. That way, because I really felt like for me to be able to be in a position where things are actually booming, like that is amazing. And that like, I'm humbled to be in that position, but I want to steward that well. And I don't want to, like, I have a family to provide for, so I'm going to make sure, we're provided for, but in an opportunity like this, I want to use it wisely. So that was kind of what I've done to try to, give a discount to people who are interested, but then also to be able to give back, especially to the community here in Columbus, which a lot of people, just like everywhere else in the world, a lot of people are rocked right now and they need some help. So just an idea. I mean, a lot of businesses can apply that too. Like maybe there's a ton of different ways if there's a nonprofit or an organization you're passionate about, maybe if you're doing well, give a portion to them through this time period or something.
Yeah, exactly. And what I've given my membership, which is normally £29 a month, I'm just giving free for this month, first month free. People can get in. If they need to learn how to build a website, they can go through the Build Your Own Website course and just, quickly get up a site at very low cost to help them move on to the next stage of their business. And what I have also done is make sure I email them to say your renewal is coming up and make it easy for them to cancel.
That's great. Now, what about like the average web designer who's doing maintenance plans and stuff like that? What would you suggest? Like, would you suggest maybe not necessarily discounted rates, but do you think there's any opportunity for web designers to continue to create new offers for existing clients? Whether it's additions or, things like that?
Very much so. But I think you have to read the room and you have to know your audience really, really well. So I'm a big advocate of, I would at 100% do some informal research. So I'd email existing clients, 2 or 3 really good ones, and say, listen, I just wanted to drop you a quick line, or can I get on the phone with you and see how your business is holding up? And at this time, what's on your priority? What's here? Because they're going to be reassess everyone, no matter what their business is. They're going to be assessing, strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, threats. So now is the time to get a couple of people who you've got a great relationship with and say, can I pick your brain for a few minutes? I want to make sure I'm supporting my client community as best I can. What do you need right now?
Mm-hmm.
Where are you at with your business? What could help you if you've got a bit more time on your hands? What would help you get, what tool do you need? What things you need? And just do the research.
Yeah, that's great. That's a really good idea. And that's what's tricky in this situation is it can be, because fear can paralyze you. And when you're uncertain, sometimes you can just find yourself just sitting in the corner. But again, going back to the idea of being proactive and not seizing the opportunity in a selfish way, but in a win-win-win type of way. Like, can you, win in this situation? Can your clients win? But then what about the people around you who are struggling? Can you help them in some way? I think that's just crucial.
Well, I did a poll in mine. I've got a big Facebook group. It's got about 7,000 or 8,000 people in it. So it's always a good temperature taker for me. So I did a poll saying, what do you need right now? And it was I put the first couple of suggestions, launch an online course, do this. I had about 4 things, and then people started adding things, but the clear winner was take my business online. So I'm doing a free training next week. And I'm going to then have this course website, very, very simple child theme in a box, 1-click install. It's free to get going with it. And I'm going to do it for very low cost, just a low cost subscription.
That's awesome. That's great.
And, obviously for the low cost, I'm going to do that for people. It's really just to cover my time answering, there'll inevitably lots of questions.
Yeah.
So you have to have some level of income in your business at this time, but it's going to allow me to road test new product. And then in the future, when things calm down, I'll be able to sell it for what it's really worth.
And that's a good point too, just for all industries. You could put yourself in a position right now that is actually really vulnerable in the long run if you do too many things for free, or you get too many subscription type stuff that, could potentially put you in a dangerous position later once things level out. So that's a good point. Like, basically I would say give as much as you can and offer as much help as you can, as long as you're meeting the lower type stuff that you need to meet as far as income and things like that for your family and for your business for the long run, for longevity standpoint.
Yeah, exactly. So give away as much as you can afford to do and charge as little as you can if it's an opportunistic offer. But it's relationship building.
That is a much more eloquent way to say what I just tried to say. So thanks for putting that. Thanks for making that sound better.
We're going to use this time to spend, but literally just ask them.
Yeah. Awesome. Okay. So retain, reorganize, replace existing income offers. Let's talk about the last one, which is what has led to you and I being so busy right now, which is people refreshing, reteaching, and reskilling. It's bigger than ever, online courses. And I'm so glad that up to this point, I'm in the position I am to give back to people, from what I've learned. What does that look like for you? I mean, you could work on your business now that you're not working in your business as much. What a better time to work on your business, right?
Yeah, unless you have a load of co-workers who are under the age of 10, then it's not quite so easy. But I took in under reach out. I meant to say at the beginning with retain. Before we talk about upskilling and all that fun stuff, it's vital. And I know I don't want to scare anyone, but I always find as a web designer, sometimes you're the keeper of a lot of knowledge that just they can't get from anyone else. When people call you, oh, my website's down, what do I do? And you're the only person who can fix it because you're the only one who knew how it was built. You know what you're the only one who knows the password to your hosting details, to how to operate your FTP system. So I would buddy up with someone and swap all those details so that if something, God forbid, happens to you and you're just out of action for a week, but I built our school's website and today I don't host it and the hosting company is down. So I've been able to go in, take a backup copy, deploy it onto my own server and make it right again. But that's the kind of situation where no one else can really help. So if you think your clients might be vulnerable, if you were ill, then make sure someone's got all your passwords, someone knows how to log into your cPanels and your hosting and can help. So just buddy up with someone.
Yeah, that's great. I actually, after we talk about this point, I wanted to kind of end off with talking about disaster planning for not only this crisis, but future. Yeah, so let's definitely come back to that because that's super, super important. But yeah, like as far as just refreshing and reteaching or retraining, like what other things would you suggest businesses do at this point? I mean, you can work on processes. Actually, my photographer who I mentioned earlier in my group, she was saying that this time actually has forced her to sit down and work on her business. She was like, in a weird way, it's kind of freeing because I can't do my shoots. I can actually work on my business. I can put all my invoicing stuff together and all the things I've been delaying, I can actually do now.
Yeah, a lot of businesses, if they're smart, could come out of this in a really strong position. In terms of reaching out though, if cash flow is a problem for you, don't forget you've got a very valuable skill. So maybe reach out and look at skill swapping, a website design with a photographer for a personal branding shoot, that kind of stuff. Or if you've dreamed of starting a podcast, reach out to someone who knows how to do that and do web designers and podcasts is a great skill swap. You can build a site for a podcaster and a podcaster can teach you how they do what they do. So if there's something that you've been dreaming of but you need someone else to facilitate it, you might find you've got a willing kind of skill swap partner at this time.
And what I was just thinking with a lot of the people who are reaching out in my courses now saying they're wanting to get their business started during this period, what a great time to be able to build your portfolio by offering either free or very cheap kind of sites. Like you could build your portfolio to 3 or 5 sites through this period, or even if you just got 3 done, as long as you make sure you don't do too much work for free, but you could at least build your portfolio and make some really good relationships that could spawn into all sorts of business once we come out of this thing.
And there's a way of obviously I'm going to be putting out a little child theme for people who need to build a course quickly. But effectively I'm going to give it away for very little, but that's going to help me troubleshoot it, work out if the support videos are right. So swapping skills and giving away and creating products and doing things for free at this time, all bets are off. It's totally unknown times, it's so the normal rules where you worry about how things look or exactly what you say perhaps don't apply, and it's quite freeing.
And I was going to say, for us, we're in the opposite position that a lot of other people are. We're busier than ever right now. So I was going to ask you what you're doing, but it sounds like you've just laid out what you're doing. You've got a ton of things that you're lining up and working on during this period. Probably sounds like you don't have too much time extra right now, maybe aside from being home in the evenings or something. Although you mentioned, I think before we went live, that you are doing a little social with some of your girlfriends, right? You're doing like a virtual hangout and stuff like that.
Yeah, I've worked out a couple of things. I've worked out that we can invite people to meet us in the field next to where we live to play badminton, because that's like quite far apart. So we've trying to come up with stuff that we can do as a family.
I feel like that's so British too.
So yeah, and we're going to go for a socially distanced picnic with some friends at the weekend where we're 10 meters.
Oh, that's great. That's great. Yeah, I was joking with my wife because she is an extroverted introvert. So she likes people and she's very friendly and great conversationalist and stuff, but people wear her out. Like when we get done with a party, I'm pumped up, but she's like, I'm done. I need to do nothing tomorrow. So when all this stuff came to fruition, I was like, actually, babe, this is like your dream. This is like an introvert's dream to have all their plans canceled for a couple of weeks. So, but some people are very opposite, and we need, the online connection and things like what you're doing, which is crucial.
Yeah. And obviously there's it's a great time to refresh. If you've always thought I need to learn Ajax or I'm going to learn how to really write CSS, people are giving away so much free online training at the moment. So, I'm gonna learn the ukulele.
Awesome.
Just signed up for a free ukulele course.
Oh, that's great. Yeah, but no, you're right. That final point right there, refresh, reach and reskill, that's huge. So just to recap before we wrap this up, retain your services, good communication upfront, be a leader with your clients. And I'm just kind of paraphrasing, I'm going to link to your webinar. Reorganize personal and business cash flow. Look at what's, the biggest things are coming in that you can potentially get discounts on or chop off, both business and personal. But also, think about your local businesses. Who can you keep going? In your case, like your housekeeper and stuff, that's huge. And I think a lot of web designers' clients are going to be open to that. If they know they're supporting our families, they're going to be open to keeping us if they're doing well. Number 3 was to replace existing income with different creative offers. I'm going to call it slimy offers, but just things that you can do to help your clients, but help potentially your community as well. And then refresh, reach, and reskill. That's huge. Before we wrap this up, Melissa, I did want to ask you just really quickly about like a disaster plan, because you talked about that briefly, and it sounds like you had that in place before all this. What would you recommend for web designers, at least? What would be a disaster type plan? Would it be like multiple streams of income? Would it be a certain amount of savings that you'd have for a while? And maybe this could be kind of like a final, I guess, yeah, that's kind of the final thought I want to ask you is what would be a good disaster type plan for web designers?
Well, I'm always a bit of a worrier. So I'm very, here's a couple of things. This applies no matter what the circumstances. I'm incredibly well insured with professional indemnity insurance. It's very easy to make with the click of literally the click of a mouse to delete something, delete someone's site, to delete all their SEO settings. I've had a couple of close calls when I was starting out like 10 years ago. I think, gosh, really didn't know what I was doing, and I wasn't insured when I first started out my first couple of years. Now I'm obviously a really responsible and very experienced web designer, so I'm not scared of making mistakes anymore. But I do like to know I'm fully insured, because so that's one thing. In a situation like this, a kind of force majeure type situation, it doesn't really help you. Insurance companies don't pay out for loss of earnings when it's this kind of act of God type scenario. So that's more that's good practice anyway. But yeah, diversifying, I have had a long road of going from one-to-one done for you client work, moving over the last 7 years to not doing any client work really. I finished my last client work and started to say no about 6 months ago. In hindsight, maybe not a brilliant plan, but but I've really been moving that way for a long time. My theme sales.
But you couldn't do what you're doing right now, though, if you had a bunch of client work to do right now. And same for me. Like, luckily, I've scaled to this point where my lead designer is taking care of all the ongoing stuff with our clients. I'm still kind of the creative director and head honcho. People still contacting me, but I pass it on pretty quickly so I can focus on my courses. Yeah.
Yeah, me too. So, and I'm really thankful for that. But I would say that it's important, and you might think now is a great opportunity for me to pivot and start really focusing on, because everybody I know, every web designer says, oh, I'm going to have a course or a theme sales or some kind of passive income. It does actually take a while to set it up, like the documentation, the ticket system, just the sheer grind of keeping things updated. You have to be committed to that. So it's not something you can necessarily pull together super quickly. So if you're thinking about diversifying, I'll tell you, the first time I went to a mastermind in Nashville that some very good friends of mine were running, And I had this course all laid out. I'd nearly recorded half it. It was what is now my Build Your Website course. And we were doing this kind of Shark Tank thing. And they were like, so tell me about all the validation you've done of your course. I was like, the what? They're like, how have you tested it? How do you know what people want? What did your beta group say? I'm like, there was none. I haven't asked anyone. And they were like, oh, really? What, you just decided the world needed to have this thing from you, did you? I was like, oh, no. I went home and did all the research, and inevitably people wanted different things than what I had planned. So don't do what I did first time around, because I had to completely rebuild the course. I learned a really hard lesson. So, but now is the time to reach out and ask people what they want, because there's a lot of people to pivot.
And you know what? This is so timely you mentioned that, because I had an inquiry from a student who's thinking about my bundle, which has all my courses. And she said, I looked at all your courses, and she's like, every course is like exactly what I need. And she asked, are you a mind reader? Like, how did you develop that? And I was like, honestly, I never did that. I didn't do any sort of poll. All I did was think back to Josh 7 or 8 years ago. And I thought, what did I need? Like, what did I need when I really wanted to? I needed, Divi beginners course. I needed a CSS course. I needed an SEO course, a design course. Like, I'm building courses that I needed back then. But to that point, like, those are two good strategies, because you don't want to just freestyle it and just try to put content together. It's got to be intentional, answering questions or problems or challenges or pain points that you had, but then also do some market research, see what is needed. And I have done that. I put some questions out as far as like, what courses are people interested in? So yeah, that's a great point for anyone who's want to diversify, and make some other products or child themes. That's a great point.
Well, now is the time to test a minimum viable product. So I've got a client who I was just recording a podcast with before I came onto yours, which was she's been wanting to do this, how to use your fancy DSLR camera as a parent for ages. So I said, no, we start now. On Monday, you're starting a pop-up Facebook challenge group. You're going to email your whole list, and you're going to do family photography challenge with your iPhone. You're going to do 5 mini videos, and you're going to put them out every Monday for the next 5 weeks, because people have got kids at home. And that will be your teaser videos for your first funnel to sell your big course. And she was like, oh my God, yes. So this is a time that I'm putting out a very, very bare bones child theme to just check everything works with, if people want to have a course theme. It's not going to be perfect, but it's going to be a minimum viable product that I can test at a low cost or for free with some people. So it's great. This is an opportunity to stop talking about something and do put that minimum viable product out. So it doesn't have to be perfect.
So as far as
people won't mind if it's perfect. If it serves their needs now in a time of crisis, they will be very happy to give you feedback on your.
Yeah. So even as kind of a disaster relief or disaster planning, it's almost like being proactive is better than just some of the other measures we might take.
Make a free community website, package it up into a child theme, and get it out to your local community and network, and then people can give you feedback on how easy it was to use, and you can use that as an opportunity to make some documentation which works for, in all scenarios. And you might find that this could take you, by giving back and creating just a minimum free or low cost product, you can actually do a lot of the hard work that normally you put off and you procrastinate because it seems boring.
Or you just don't have the time for when you're busy working in the business, whereas now you got some time. So awesome, Melissa. Great. This is great. Great talk. So just to recap, I'll make sure I link to the webinar and link to the resources you send over so everyone can check that out. But retain, reorganize, replace, refresh. Love those 4 R's. Melissa, thanks so much for coming on. I know your time is very valuable right now. You got a lot going on. So thanks so much for taking some time to chat with me and my audience. And I know this is going to help out a lot of web designers. And again, I just want to encourage everyone to take this information, and you can repackage it yourself. Like, make this your own and then give it to your clients. You can really come out looking like an expert. You can still land projects and make money, good money, during this period too. So there's no harm in doing that. And then once things turn around, you're going to, just wait till the flood comes in. I feel like if you're the proactive one during this period.
Yeah. And there's a link to, when Josh sends you the links, there's a link to an updated resources document with things like email swipe files, like how do you reach out to your client? What should you say? Like outlining the scenarios. And in the blog post, there's a whole kind of transcript as well. So you can swipe anything I've said, swipe any of my copy, just go for it.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Melissa. Well, like I said, I'll have you in again once we're past this crisis period, and we'll talk maybe photography and child themes. But until then, thanks so much for coming on today.
Total pleasure. Good luck, everyone. Take care.
Hey guys and gals, just wanted to pop in with a couple things before you head out. If you enjoyed this episode, please consider leaving a review on iTunes or wherever you listen to this podcast. I would love to hear your feedback, and it will also help other web designers find the show. Be sure to check out the show notes for this episode. Just go to joshhall.co, click on podcasts, and search this episode number, and you'll find all the links, descriptions, and resources we talked about. And if you haven't already, make sure you subscribe, and you'll be notified when the next episode is live. Thanks again for tuning in, and I'll catch you guys on the next episode.